Created by Simon Furman and Geoff Sr. for Marvel UK, Death's Head was a fan favourite comic book character. The iconic Freelance Peace Keeping Agent had been in comic book limbo for several years after several reworkings over the years, and fans had asked repeatedly to see him return in comic book form. And in March 2011, Panini Magazines made that happen in their Marvel Heroes comic. The two-part story featured the Incredible Hulk face-off against Death's Head, with the second half of the story being written by none other than Simon Furman and illustrated by lifelong Death's Head fan Simon Williams, with colours by Jason Cardy. All four took to the stage for an exclusive Q&A panel at the Transformers Convention Auto Assembly 2011 later that year to talk about the iconic character's return. Now we're proud to bring you that panel in full. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell below for notifications when more videos go live, including our script reading from this event, which features several Transformers voice actors and a special appearance from Death's Head himself.
Mr. Jason Cardy, Simon Williams, Simon Furman and Mr. Geoff Sr. So, gents, take it away, you're wonderful.
Once upon a time, there was a freelance peacekeeping agent, and he was called Death's Head. And he made a comeback this year in a copy of Marvel Panini UK's Marvel Heroes. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask.
The other one.
Oh.
You got your own
Are
one?
you surprised how
Extra
popular
run?
Death's Head is compared to all the other sort of characters like him? I mean, he's a very popular independent peacekeeper. And are you surprised that he's so well liked?
Simon.
What's the question again? Yeah, I mean, surprised and pleased. When we first came up with the idea of Death's Head, he was very much meant to be a kind of disposable character, a plot device really, for just that one storyline. But when I saw Geoff's, drawing of him, and I just thought, no, this is a character who deserves, a little more personality and character quirks than I had in the original script. So, quite rare for the time, I went back in and rewrote a lot of the Death's Head dialogue, just to give him the yeses and the hers and the other sort of strange, habits. I mean, I think the thing about not liking being called a bounty hunter was there right from the start. But a lot of his other things, we just layered into that first story. And, a lot of that's down to Geoff's, visualization of him, which just looks so amazing. I really hadn't seen anything like that before. And I can't even remember how much guidance we gave Geoff, or whether we just said, well, it's a guy with a kind of animal skull for a head or something. Any idea?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure. It was pretty free rein on my part. I think maybe Simon did say in the original brief that he had a head of a skull or something. I can't quite remember, but I think the fact that he had character, the original, per se, I'm just talking about, because we could move his eyebrows up and down and things like that, which it made him more human, I guess. So he could give him expressions and things, and I think that's what makes you like the guy, because you can actually, you can see he's angry or surprised or whatever. So maybe that's why he's been quite popular, which has been good.
I think what helps with his popularity as well, he's a character who has spanned licenses. So he moved on from Transformers via Doctor Who to the Marvel Universe. So there may be fans out there who discovered the character via Doctor Who or via the Marvel Universe who may not have necessarily read his Transformers appearances. So that's what I found particularly cool about the character back in the day. I thought, wow, this is really good to have this character that's met all these different, these different licenses for a better term. I think that adds to his popularity as well.
One of the things I like about Death's Head is the fact that he's a freelance peacekeeping agent. He's his own man. He does whatever he wants. He picks the clients he wants, and I think that's pretty much our job. It's us in comic book form, really. So yeah, his design is just so iconic, and you know, it's original as well. Geoff really did wonders with that design, and it was so different to the kind of like the boxy look of the Gen 1 characters, and yeah, you could easily fit into like a 2000 AD, and Judge Dredd or something like that.
I mean, you know, that kind of 2000 AD feel influenced a lot of my writing back then. You know, Dragon's Claws has a lot of its roots in reading 2000 AD strips. You know, and it had that very British flavour to it, where you were rooting for these, you know, utter sorts of character. You know, they really weren't likeable in any. They shouldn't be likeable, and yet somehow you kind of find yourself rooting for Death's Head. And I think that's the appeal of him. You know, he's a rotten character. He's reprehensible in so many ways, and yet you kind of like him just because he's very pure in his motivations. You know, there's no revenge, there's no anger. You know, he's purely financially motivated, which was also very 80s, I guess, at the time. You know, there was a lot of that, you know, greed is good kind of ethos back then, and Death's Head was our own little reflection of that.
Hey, Adam? Oh, good man.
I'm not very familiar with Death's Head, but I've read up about it on Transformers YouTube circle, but it seems like the character's gone through at least 3 or 4 different incarnations over the years. Is this version of Death's Head going to be the original from the Marvel Transformers scripts, or is it going to be a brand new version, fresh off the production line, meeting talent, different host of characters, or is it going to be Transformers universe again?
I mean, Death's Head has been through a lot of changes. I mean, he was Death's Head 2, we did a Death's Head 3.0, but when we got to do the Marvel Heroes one, all of us wanted to do the kind of original classic. I mean, even the original classic changed his costume at one point. Brian Hitch did a redesign on him and gave him a sort of redesigned, recoloured costume. But, you know, all of us wanted to go back to the original kind of slightly, you know, green commando style Death's Head from the very early comics. And I think now, if I had a chance to do Death's Head again for Marvel, it's that Death's Head I want to do. You know, none of the sort of latter versions. I think I really want to go back to using that original. And it was nice to see recently that they used him in a short-lived book called Sword. He cropped up as a kind of a prequel to the original. So he was giant-sized, Transformer-sized, a little bit different in design, and just picking up some of his vocal mannerisms. So, you know, the writer Kieran Gillen obviously knew the character and did his own kind of little, you know, here's how he came to pick up some of his stock phrases. So, you know, there's lots of respect, I think, for the character, and everybody veers towards that original version.
Same here. I mean, that was the version that I wanted to draw as well, because I can remember emailing you about it, Simon, you know, which version should we go with? And hands down, it was the original classic Death's Head. And it's also like that kind of green giant against green giant as well, because it was obviously battling the Hulk in the story. So the original is just such a, you know, the subsequent kind of versions of the character, it seems you've got Death's Head 2. You know, I'm a fan of Liam Sharp's work and all that. It wasn't as original as the original, if you know what I mean. So,
I mean, I think the slight misstep with Death's Head 2, and this is not to denigrate any other person's work, is that they sort of lost the humour. And you know, what made Death's Head sort of atrocities palatable was this kind of thick vein of dark humour that ran through the character. So I guess that's why, you know, I just felt they veered away from that and turned him into a kind of far more standard, robotic, Terminator-esque, Predator-esque killing machine. And that was never really the point with Death's Head.
that was just to fit in with what comics were like at the time. You know, it was the age of the anti-hero, you know, the Punisher and Wolverine, and they altered the character to make it fit in with that genre, and it lost everything to me that made the original character work so well?
Sorry to give you the silly question. This one's either to Simon or all four of you can answer this one. Last night we saw Geoff said the Beast Wars Megatron. If you had the two of them in the room, which one would be the one that would stop saying yes after the other?
I think Geoff said to get tired of saying yes if there was competition. It was great to do that thing last night. Great to put Death's head in there and have all those little nods to the past of Transformers and just have talented guys like David, and Nick actually sort of competing with their yeses and everything. And I thought all the actors last night were brilliant, including the non-professionals, who just did such a bang-up job of it. And it was great to actually finally put a voice to Death's head.
Well, if I know the character, Death's head being very business-minded, I think he would have personally trademarked that little tip that he's got. He would have, and I don't think he would take too kindly to Beast Wars Meg's kind of infringing that trademark, so I think that might cause a little bit of a problem.
I think it's quite interesting though that two characters that have such a notoriety for being kind of mass murderer types can be so positive. That's a positive outlook on life, really.
I totally agree.
What he said.
If any of you could either do a story or a story arc for Death's Head, where would you like to take him?
Personally, I'd love to put him squarely back in the Marvel Universe, the current Marvel Universe, and just have him, much more interact across a range of Marvel characters. I'd love to do a big, all mechanoids in the Marvel Universe kind of storyline with Death's Head and just, and involve a whole host of other characters. But, Death's Head is a Marvel character. I know, sort of technically speaking, he started in Transformers, but I've always thought of him more as a Marvel character. So, I was always very happy when he sort of got adopted and made guest appearances in Fantastic Four and She-Hulk and started to become a kind of a regular Marvel character. So I think if there was a new one, I'd really want to see him right in the thick of the Marvel Universe.
Because I work in advertising, I've probably seen him drinking a pint of Guinness.
Okay, well, I've already worked on the story that I would want to see Death's Head in, and that's Death's Head versus the Incredible Hulk. But there are a couple of other Marvel characters that I think are team-ups that are waiting to happen. I think Death's Head, Deadpool should happen, and Death's Head and Howard the Duck. Yeah, Marvel, if you're listening, make it happen.
I'd be quite curious to see Death's Head in a Transformers animated story where he has to compete with Lockdown just to kind of win a contract or something like that. That's quite cool.
With a character like Death's Head, how do you get on with the rights issue between the different publishers, the ownership of the actual character?
Well, I think it's very simply he's a Marvel character. That actually, even Transformers back in the day was a Marvel comic where he appeared. So I don't think there's any kind of grey area. He's very much a Marvel-owned character, and we took pains to copyright him Marvel back in the day. While he was in Transformers, we had a one-page strip done very quickly to go on the back of various other Marvel titles, just so he appeared as a Marvel character and wasn't automatically absorbed into the Hasbro Transformers kind of catch-all thing of any incidental characters. So yeah, I think right from the very go, he was a Marvel character.
Simon, do you ever sometimes feel it may have been better if he hadn't become a Hasbro character? Because personally, I think we'd still be seeing the character today if that happened.
I don't know. What would have been nice is we'd probably got a nice Death's Head toy by now. But,
yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I actually kind of, because I've got such an affection for Marvel Comics, it's what I grew up reading. You know, the fact that I've kind of created a character that is now in that universe is quite sort of a big thing for me.
What Geoff said.
That's just being lazy now, Jake.
Yeah, just talking about what characters Death's Head would go up against. Would you want to see him go up against the Doctor again? And if so, which incarnation of the Doctor would you like to see him up against?
Well, in my Hulk versus Death's Head comic, which I printed up myself, I had him with the classic Tom Baker Fourth Doctor. It was just, I think that would be comedy gold.
I mean, I'd love to see him pitted against the current Doctor, you know. I always think you should move with the times with Doctor Who, so yeah, I'd love to see a Matt Smith Death's Head story.
Yeah, well, I don't actually watch Doctor Who, but it's quite popular, so obviously if he's in Doctor Who, then Death's Head will be even more popular, which is not a bad thing.
Apparently, Death's Head was scheduled to be an episode of Torchwood, but he read the script and he just didn't fancy it.
They couldn't afford it.
Oh my God. I thought one of the most interesting things about Death's Head was the concept of contract fulfillment at all costs, and I just wondered if you took that, Simon, from the actual sort of Terminator films, or if that inspired you at all, because Death's Head doesn't always fulfill his contracts. That seems to be the 100% rule until the twist at the end, where he decides often that he may fulfill the contract on someone else. But I just wondered if that was the inspiration there at all.
I'm sure lots of things crept into the creation of Death's Head, and lots of those archetypes at the time. But I mean, I always approach any character with like, well, okay, if you've got a sort of merciless robot killing machine, what twist can you put them? What are people expecting him to be? And you know, that's possibly a businessman. You know, you just don't necessarily expect someone to be quite so letter of the contract all the way through. But yeah, then the extra twist is that there's normally some reason why, you know, somebody betrays him, that's a no-no, you know, somebody won't pay him, that's another no-no. So, you know, yes, yeah, exactly. So, you know, there were lots of kind of get-out clauses there, but yeah, the idea that he can't be bargained with, he can't be, you know, bought off, he can't be distracted, was, yes, has a sort of Terminator vibe to it, I guess.
I remember the crossover though with the Fantastic Four, and he has got a bit of a soft side as well when he saw Franklin Richards. I'm pretty sure of it.
Actually, just talk about influences, just on a visual sense, I was actually thinking once, I think I was influenced by Darth Vader, because if you look at Death's Head's mouth, Darth Vader's got the same thing going on, so just as influences visually, I think maybe that's where that came from.
I've actually created a Death's Head parody called Darth's Head. Yeah. Feel the force, yes.
Don't be shy now, folks. If you do want to ask a question, put your hand up.
Just Jason mentioned when you asked about ideal settings for Death's Head, you mentioned the animated universe. When any of you there, were any of you aware that they did give the shout out to Death's Head, that is now the name of Lockdown Ship, that there is still a little bit of him left in that universe there. There's still no...
I didn't realise that, but that's great.
Yeah. Apparently Derek J. Wyatt denies it totally, but I don't believe him. Next, yes?
Any other questions, guys? Two of us standing with mics ready to run. Oh, great. Furthest away from me, thanks very much.
Just for fun, if you were asked to write an outline for a motion picture, what would be your perspective?
Okay, if we were asked to write an outline for a motion picture of Death's Head, what would our pitch be? That's a good question. I mean, I don't know actually.
Don't get Michael Bay to do it.
No Michael Bay. I think I'd want to do a time travel story. I think Death's Head works best when he's hopping around between time eras and everything. So I think if there was going to be a Death's Head movie, I'd want to move him around through time quite a bit and have some kind of, scavenger hunt or something through time, something that moves him around through a lot of different locations and planets and different, sort of foes and everything. But yeah, something time travel, definitely.
Yeah, and if the film was ever made, I'm not sure. A big fan of the Coen brothers or Ridley Scott, so either of them to direct would be good for me.
You know what, my mind's actually gone blank on this, so I'm just going to go with what these guys said.
The question is, would you do a guy in a suit or would he be CG?
CG, he's really CG, yes.
Depends how big he is. Like, I've got like the idea of a guy who Death's Head, Japanese style Godzilla guy in a suit.
I think seeing now with Transformers movies what they can do with CG and how well they can blend it with live action, I think I'd definitely go for a CG Death's Head.
Yes, definitely.
I just wanted to say one of my favourite ever Death's Head moments was in the G1 comics where Death's Head dispatches Shockwave. I don't know if anyone can remember that, but going back to what you were saying earlier about Death's Head being completely his own man, he kind of dispatches Shockwave under duress. He gets coerced into it by Unicron, and even as he terminates him, he's doing it with some regret. And I thought that was a really interesting concept and really well handled. That he even takes the measure of pulling the chip out of the head and crushing it and everything. I just thought that was a great Death's Head moment from early on. Not really a question on that, but I just wanted to tip my hat to that bit of storyline.
I mean, in a way it was sad in a way we had to write Death's Head out of Transformers, but, clearly, we couldn't just keep featuring in Transformers. I think by osmosis he would have started to become a bit more sort of Hasbro and Marvel. So, and we really at that time wanted to launch the Death's Head title, so a lot of Legacy of Unicron was written as Death's Head's swan song in Transformers. So, we wanted to give him a really good showing in that one, and I think it's possibly the most page time he has in any of the Transformers stories. So, yeah, there were a lot of moments I was very happy with in that one.
I've got a question. What classic, you're a classic Marvel fan, what classic Marvel creators would you have loved to have seen their take on Death's Head?
Well, I mean, as you'd expect, I'd love to have seen the Jack Kirby Death's Head. You absolutely know it would have been so fantastic and kinetic and action-filled. And I don't know. I loved it. I thought Walt Simonson did a brilliant Death's Head. The cover he did for Body in Question was, for one of the Marvel issues, I think it was. Script, that's right. Yeah, I thought was a corking cover, and I think Geoff, didn't you work with Walt on the cover for Body in Question? Yeah, I just think he had a real feel for the character, and I love his art anyway. But yeah, I could list X number of artists I'd love to see their version of Death's Head.
I'd go with Jack Kirby.
Yeah.
On both Death's Head and Transformers.
I always liked John Buscema. I used to love his comment and stuff. When he inked himself, I knew that, I can't remember the guy who used to embellish him, but when he did his own, I really liked it, and I like seeing John Buscema do a Death's Head.
What was your favourite Death's Head moment?
So many.
For me, it's that original appearance, because it was one of those ones where I think I got right, and along with Geoff, just we established that character very comprehensively just in his first little scene in the bar, and I just love the way Geoff drew the barman getting his head bashed against the table for calling him a bounty hunter. You know, and I just think that kind of moment was Death's Head in a nutshell, and that's the one that kind of stays with me.
I can remember how excited I was when I saw the panel where the Doctor had dumped Death's Head on top of the Four Freedoms Plaza, the Fantastic Four's building. I can remember thinking, oh, this is just getting better and better.
Yeah, I agree with Simon. It was his first appearance in the bar when he got the barman and smashed him up a bit. And strangely enough, I've actually still got that page, so that's good. So maybe that's why that one sticks in my mind.
I'd also say that I love that we got to do our kind of, you know, Death's Head 1 kills Death's Head 2 story that time. And we just had so much gratuitous fun with that, because, you know, there was a little bit of needle about the fact that we never got to continue with Death's Head 1 and he was replaced with Death's Head 2. So to go back and do that one was just great sort of malicious fun.
There's quite a few moments I really like in the early comics, and I just like the idea that Death's Head would be chasing the big guns, you know, he'd be taking on like Galvatron, he'd be taking on Rodimus Prime. He didn't care who they were, he didn't care how popular or powerful, and you know, it's like this character come out of nowhere, and suddenly he's up there playing with the big boys, and yeah, I thought that was quite cool.
Any more for any more? Do you have any more questions? Oh, good man.
You mentioned earlier that you'd like to see Death's Head versus Deadpool, which, you know, the two go hand in hand. Would you prefer to see them go head to head or work together?
I think it would have to be head to head, you know, because they're both. Sorry, one's a mercenary, the other's a freelance peacekeeping agent. I could see them foiling each other's kind of missions, you know. That's what I, yeah, definitely head to head.
Any more questions? Anyone else with any questions? Well, if that's it, if we can have a big hand for our panel. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click on the like button and leave us a comment below. Also, spare a moment to share this video on Twitter, Facebook and all your social media pages. To get updates on all of our latest videos delivered straight to your inbox, subscribe now using the link on the screen.